The Cerulean Empire's flagship, Eternal Dawn, glided through the darkness of space, its crystalline hull refracting distant starlight in mesmerizing patterns. High Commander Zarin stood at the observation deck, her iridescent scales shifting colors as she processed the unprecedented sensor readings before her. In all her centuries of exploration, she had never encountered anything quite like this. The vessel approaching their border was unlike anything in their vast database. Its design defied Cerulean engineering principles, angular, asymmetrical, and built with materials that shouldn't exist according to their understanding of physics. But what truly caught Zarin's attention was the energy signature. It pulsed with a rhythm that suggested incredible power contained by impossible means. High Commander, her science officer, Velix, called out, his tentacles writhing with excitement. "We've confirmed the vessel's origin. It comes from a system we designated as unremarkable 2 centuries ago, a Class 13 death world." Zarin's scales flashed deep purple in shock. Class 13 worlds were theoretical nightmares, planets with such extreme conditions that intelligent life should never evolve there. Crushing gravity, lethal radiation, volatile weather patterns, and aggressive biodiversity made them uninhabitable by any known standards. "Impossible," she whispered, but the data didn't lie. "Open a channel." The response came faster than expected, in perfect Cerulean language. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon Breaker. We come seeking peaceful contact and diplomatic relations." The bridge crew exchanged glances. No species had ever mastered their language so quickly. The implications were staggering. "Captain Chen," Zarin responded, maintaining her diplomatic composure. "I am High Commander Zarin of the Cerulean Empire. Your presence here is unexpected. Our protocols require all first contact vessels to power down weapons and submit to standard safety scans." There was a pause before Chen replied, "With respect, High Commander, we'll maintain our current defensive posture until diplomatic protocols are established. We're happy to arrange a neutral meeting point and begin cultural exchange." Zarin's scales rippled with concern. No species had ever rejected standard protocols before. Yet the humans hadn't powered up their weapons either. They maintained a purely defensive stance. "Captain Chen, I must insist," Zarin began, but Velix interrupted. "High Commander, their ship, it's executing a series of micro-jumps. The precision is impossible. They're maintaining perfect defensive positioning while demonstrating their maneuverability." Zarin watched in fascination as the Horizon Breaker performed a complex dance through space, each movement precise and purposeful. It was a display of technological mastery that bordered on art. "Perhaps," Chen's voice returned, warm but firm, "a demonstration of trust is in order. We're launching a small drone carrying cultural and historical data. Your sensors will confirm it's unarmed." True to their word, a small object emerged from the human vessel. Cerulean scanners confirmed it contained only data storage and transmission equipment. As it approached, it projected a holographic display visible to both ships. The images that appeared shook the Cerulean crew to their core. They watched as humans evolved on their death world, surviving catastrophes that would have ended most civilizations. They saw cities rebuilt after devastating natural disasters, technology advancing through necessity rather than luxury, and a species that turned their harsh environment into an advantage. "We developed differently than most species," Chen explained, her voice carrying the hint of pride. "Earth taught us to be adaptable, to find solutions where others might see only problems. We learned to dance with hurricanes, harness the power of atoms, and turn our greatest challenges into our greatest strengths." Zarin found herself fascinated. Where Cerulean technology pursued perfection through careful, methodical advancement, humans had developed through necessity and innovation. Their solutions were often unconventional but undeniably effective. "Your ship," Zarin observed, "it uses principles our scientists considered theoretical." "Yes," Chen confirmed. "When conventional physics couldn't get us to the stars, we found ways to bend the rules. We're good at that, finding paths where others see walls. The High Commander made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Captain Chen, I propose we bypass standard protocols. Instead, I invite you to dock with the Eternal Dawn. Let us write new protocols together, ones that acknowledge the unique circumstances of this encounter. A bold proposal, High Commander. I accept. As the human vessel gracefully approached the docking bay, Zarin reflected on what this meeting meant. The Cerulean Empire had always seen itself as the peak of civilization, guiding younger species toward enlightenment. But these humans, they had taken a different path, one forged in adversity and tempered by challenge. The docking procedure itself demonstrated the stark differences between their civilizations. Where Cerulean ships used standardized crystalline interfaces, the Horizon Breaker deployed adaptive mechanical connectors that adjusted in real time to match the alien architecture. It was elegant in its pragmatism, much like the species that created it. As the airlock cycled and final preparations were made for the first face-to-face meeting, Zarin received one last message from Captain Chen. High Commander, we look forward to learning from each other. After all, the universe is vast, and there are always new ways to look at old problems. Zarin's scales shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. The Cerulean Empire was about to learn that sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected teachers, even those who emerged from worlds they had dismissed as impossible. The meeting chambers aboard the Eternal Dawn hummed with an unfamiliar energy as Captain Sarah Chen and her diplomatic team sat across from their Cerulean hosts. The crystalline walls pulsed with subtle bioluminescence, a display that would have been mesmerizing if not for the tension filling the room. Dr. Marcus Wong, the team's xenobiologist, couldn't help but marvel at the Ceruleans' biology. Their iridescent scales shifted colors with their emotions, creating complex patterns that seemed to ripple across their serpentine forms. But what fascinated him most was how they had evolved in nearly perfect conditions, their homeworld a paradise by human standards. Your achievements are concerning, Supreme Scientific Director Valfor stated, his scales flickering between deep green uncertainty and violet anxiety. Our analysis shows your species progressed from primitive tools to faster-than-light travel in less than 10,000 years. The standard evolutionary timeline suggests this should have taken at least 50,000. Sarah leaned forward, her dark eyes reflecting the chamber's ambient light. Necessity breeds innovation, Director. When your world constantly tries to kill you, you either adapt quickly or you die. The Cerulean delegation's scales rippled in unison at her blunt assessment. Their civilization had developed through careful, methodical progress, each advancement building naturally upon the last. The human approach to technology, characterized by desperate leaps forward and revolutionary breakthroughs, seemed chaotic and dangerous. Let us show you something, Sarah offered, nodding to her chief engineer, Raj Patel. He activated a holographic display, showing Earth's history of natural disasters, wars, and near-extinction events. Each of these crises pushed us to innovate. When tsunamis threatened our coastal cities, we didn't just build walls. We developed energy harvesting systems to convert wave power into shields. When solar flares nearly crashed our power grids, we didn't just protect them. We learned to channel and store that energy. Valfor's assistant, young researcher Zelera, moved closer to the display, her scales shimmering with fascination. Your species turned survival mechanisms into technological advantages, but surely this approach produces many failures. More than we can count, Raj acknowledged with a wry smile. But we learned from each one. Human progress isn't a straight line. It's more like a web of possibilities, with each failure showing us new paths forward. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent alert. High Commander Zarin's scales flashed commanding purple as she received the report. A Cerulean mining colony in the Proxima sector has suffered a catastrophic containment failure. Their quantum extraction core is approaching critical collapse. Sarah exchanged quick glances with her team. Our ships are equipped with emergency containment systems designed for extreme conditions. We developed them after our own quantum mining accidents. We could help. The cerulean leadership scales shifted through a rapid sequence of colors: doubt, concern, hope, and fear. Their mining technology was considered the safest in known space. The idea of accepting help from a species they had just met, especially one whose methods they barely understood, went against centuries of protocol. "There's no time for a committee debate," Sarah pressed. "We've handled similar situations. Let us help." Zarin made a decision that would reshape cerulean society's view of humanity. "Permission granted, Captain Chen. But we will accompany you." The Horizon Breaker's response time stunned the ceruleans. Within minutes, the human vessel had plotted a course that their computers insisted was impossible. A gravity-assisted slingshot maneuver that would cut their travel time in half. As they approached the mining colony, the true scale of the crisis became apparent. The quantum extraction core's containment field was failing, its energy signature destabilizing in ways that threatened to tear reality itself apart. "Impossible," Valthor whispered, his scales pale with horror. "Our models show containment failure should have already occurred." Raj studied the readings with practiced calm. "Your models assume perfect conditions. We learn to account for chaos. It's kind of our specialty." Horizon Breaker deployed the emergency containment array. The human ship launched what appeared to be a scattered collection of small drones. The ceruleans watched in amazement as these devices formed an irregular pattern around the failing core, each one adjusting its position in response to the quantum fluctuations. "Standard symmetric containment fields wouldn't work here," Raj explained as he fine-tuned the array. "The quantum field is too unstable, so we're creating an adaptive containment grid that flows with the instabilities rather than fighting them." Sarah turned to Zarin, her expression serious. "We'll need to coordinate with your people inside. The containment array can hold things stable, but we'll need to help them shut down the core safely." The next hours demonstrated to the ceruleans why humanity had survived its harsh homeworld. The human team worked with a controlled urgency, adapting their plans on the fly as new complications arose. Where cerulean engineers sought perfect solutions, the humans embraced imperfect but effective answers. When it was over, when the core was safely powered down and the crisis averted, Valthor approached Sarah with scales showing deep blue respect. "Your methods are unorthodox, perhaps even dangerous by our standards. But today, they save thousands of lives. That's the thing about evolution in a death world." Sarah replied softly. "You learned that perfect solutions can take too long. Sometimes you need to embrace the chaos and find a way to dance with it." The emergency signal cut through the peaceful ambience of the Eternal Dawn's diplomatic quarter, its harsh tone drawing immediate attention from both human and cerulean crews. High Commander Zarin's scales shifted to alert crimson as the tactical display materialized before them. "Unknown vessels," her tactical officer reported, tentacles moving rapidly across the control interface. "They're emerging from quantum space using technology we've never encountered. Current count is 17 ships, all heavily armed." Sarah Chen studied the tactical display, her expression grim. The unknown vessels moved with predatory grace, their formation suggesting both military precision and hostile intent. "Those energy signatures," she muttered, "they're running hot, weapons primed and shields at maximum." Before either commander could respond, the lead vessel transmitted a message that automatically translated into both human and cerulean languages. "This is Arkshan Vexkar of the Swarm Collective. Your territories have been designated for harvest. Surrender your technological assets and prepare for processing." The cerulean command staff scales paled to a collective ash gray. The Swarm Collective was supposed to be a myth, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unrestricted technological evolution. Yet here they were, their biomechanical ships already moving to establish a containment grid around both the Eternal Dawn and the Horizon Breaker. "They're using a quantum-locked formation," Raj observed, his fingers dancing across his portable interface. "Classic encirclement tactics, but with technology that shouldn't exist in this sector of space. Zarin's scales flickered with controlled panic. Our defensive protocols were never designed for this level of threat. The collective's technology appears to be centuries beyond our own. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she watched the enemy formation. Maybe not centuries. They're efficient, I'll give them that, but there's a pattern to their movements. They're relying on technological superiority rather than tactical innovation. Explain, Zarin demanded, her scales showing hints of hope among the fear. They're using their quantum-locked formation like a perfect shield, but perfect isn't always best. Look at their energy distribution. It's completely symmetrical. No redundancies, no adaptability. Sarah turned to Raj. Remember the mining colony? Sometimes chaos is our best friend. Understanding dawned in Raj's eyes. The containment array. If we modify it to generate controlled quantum instabilities instead of containing them, we could disrupt their formation. Sarah finished. But we'd need the Cerulean's help. Your crystalline technology. It can channel and amplify quantum frequencies, right? Valthor's scales shifted to analytical blue. Yes, but such an application would be highly unstable. The probability of catastrophic failure would be high, Sarah interrupted. But right now, certain defeat is staring us in the face. Sometimes you have to embrace imperfection to find a perfect solution. The swarm collected ships began their final approach, their weapons charging with ominous purpose. Your time for surrender has expired, Arkshan Vexkar's cold voice announced. Prepare for harvest. Commander Zarin. Sarah's voice carried quiet authority. I know this goes against everything your civilization believes in. But right now, we need to combine our technologies in ways neither of us would normally consider. Trust us. Trust chaos. Zarin looked at her crew, at the humans who had already proven themselves allies, at the approaching enemy that threatened everything. Her scales settled into a determined purple. What do you need from us? The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Human engineering teams worked alongside Cerulean technicians, combining their technologies in ways that made both sides deeply uncomfortable. The Horizon Breaker's containment array drones were modified with crystalline amplifiers, their carefully calculated positions replaced with a seemingly random pattern that made the Cerulean scientists visibly anxious. Remember, Sarah advised as they made final preparations, when they attack, they'll expect us to respond with either human or Cerulean tactics. They won't be prepared for both at once. The Swarm Collective's first strike was devastating. A perfectly coordinated barrage of quantum-enhanced energy weapons designed to overwhelm any known defense. But instead of hitting shields or armor, their attacks encountered a chaotic web of quantum disruptions, amplified and redirected by crystalline technology that didn't behave the way physics said it should. The result was spectacular. The collective's quantum-locked formation began to destabilize, their perfect symmetry becoming their greatest weakness. Ships designed to work in flawless harmony suddenly found themselves out of sync, their sophisticated systems unable to compensate for the controlled chaos being introduced into their battle network. It's working, Raj called out, his hands flying over his console. Their quantum field is cascading. They can't maintain formation without. A massive energy surge interrupted him. The collective's flagship was attempting to compensate for the disruption by channeling more power through their quantum network. It was exactly what Sarah had hoped they would do. Now, she ordered, full power to the crystalline amplifiers. The space between the ships erupted with quantum chaos, carefully controlled by human ingenuity and channeled through Cerulean precision. The collective's perfectly ordered battle plan dissolved into confusion as their ships struggled to maintain their technological advantage against an enemy that had turned disorder itself into a weapon. The Swarm Collective's formation had shattered, but their individual ships remained formidable. Arkshan Vexkar's voice crackled through the command channel, its artificial calm giving way to something close to anger. Your resistance is unprecedented, but ultimately futile. We evolve. We adapt. We consume. Sarah watched as the enemy vessels began shifting their configurations, mechanical components rearranging themselves to compensate for the quantum disruption field. "They're learning," she observed. "But so are we." The Horizon Breaker's sensors detected the changes immediately. The collected ships were abandoning their quantum-locked formation in favor of individual attack patterns, each vessel becoming a self-contained battle unit. It was an impressive display of tactical flexibility. But it wasn't enough. "They're still thinking like machines," Sarah explained to Zarin, whose scales now showed a complex pattern of tactical purple and analytical blue. "They're adapting their strategy based on cold probability. But they're forgetting something fundamental about evolution." "What's that?" Zarin asked, her eyes fixed on the battle display. "Sometimes the best adaptations come from impossible situations." Sarah turned to Raj. "Remember that training simulation? The one everyone said was unwinnable." A slow smile spread across Raj's face. "The Kobayashi Maru scenario. But that would require..." He paused, looking at the cerulean technology surrounding them. "Actually, with their crystalline matrices, we might be able to pull it off." Valthor's scales flickered with curiosity. "What are you suggesting?" "Your crystalline technology is perfect for channeling and amplifying energy," Sarah explained. "But you always use it in precisely controlled ways. What if we deliberately overloaded it instead?" The cerulean scientist's scales paled simultaneously. "The resulting feedback would be catastrophic," Valthor protested. "The energy discharge could damage both fleets." "Not if we use your precision to control our chaos," Raj interjected. "We don't need to contain the energy. We need to direct it. Like a lightning rod guides a lightning bolt." Understanding dawned in Zarin's eyes. "You want to use our ships as conductors, channeling the quantum disruption through our crystalline hulls to create a cascading energy web." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "The collective adapted to our individual attacks, but they won't expect us to turn our entire defensive formation into one massive weapon. It's too irrational, too risky, which is exactly why it will work." The next few minutes were a frenzied rush of activity as human engineers worked with cerulean technicians to modify their ships' crystalline structures. The collective pressed their attack, their ships launching waves of quantum-enhanced weapons that tested the Allies' defenses. "They're trying to overwhelm us with brute force," Raj reported, his hands flying over his console. "Standard machine logic. If something isn't working, add more power." "Then let's give them more power than they can handle," Sarah responded. She turned to Zarin. "Commander, we're ready. But I have to warn you, this will push your ship systems well beyond their design tolerances." Zarin's scales shifted to a deep, determined purple. "My people built these ships to achieve perfection. Perhaps it's time we learned that perfection can take many forms." She straightened to her full height. "All cerulean vessels, prepare for synchronized crystal resonance on my mark." The collective ships pressed closer, their weapons charging for what they calculated would be a killing blow. Arkshan Vexkar's voice echoed through the command channel one final time. "Your resistance has provided valuable data. Your destruction will contribute to our evolution." "Ready," Raj called out, his fingers poised over the controls. "Now," Sarah and Zarin commanded in unison. The space between the fleets erupted with energy as every cerulean ship's crystalline hull began to resonate at precisely the same frequency. The Horizon Breaker's modified containment array pulsed in response, creating a web of controlled quantum chaos that the cerulean ships caught and amplified. The effect was beyond anything either species had predicted. The crystalline hulls didn't just channel the energy. They transformed it, creating a cascading wave of quantum disruptions that rippled through space like a living thing. The collected ships, for all their advanced technology, had no defense against this impossible combination of precise control and deliberate chaos. "Their quantum cores are destabilizing," Raj reported, his voice tight with concentration. "The feedback loop is working exactly as we..." "Wait." His eyes widened. "The energy patterns, they're forming some kind of coherent structure. Before their eyes, the quantum chaos they had unleashed began to take shape, guided by the crystalline network of cerulean ships. It wasn't just disrupting the collective's technology. It was creating something entirely new, a hybrid form of energy that existed somewhere between order and chaos. The quantum energy field pulsed with impossible colors as it enveloped the swarm collective's fleet. On the Eternal Dawn's command deck, human and cerulean crews watched in amazement as their desperate gambit produced something entirely unexpected. The chaotic energy, channeled through crystalline precision, wasn't just disrupting the enemy ships, it was rewriting the laws of physics around them. Fascinating, Valthor whispered, his scales shimmering with scientific wonder. The quantum field has achieved a state of dynamic equilibrium between order and chaos. It's beautiful. The collected ships hung motionless in space, their biomechanical systems overwhelmed by an energy pattern they couldn't process. Archon Vexcar's final transmission cut off midward, replaced by cascading waves of corrupted data. Their quantum cores are completely offline, Raj reported, studying the readings with intense interest. But there's something else happening. The energy field, it's not just disrupting their systems. It's creating new patterns, new possibilities. Sarah moved closer to the tactical display, her dark eyes reflecting the swirling quantum energies. They wanted evolution, she said softly. But they didn't understand that true evolution requires both chaos and order, both destruction and creation. Zarin's scales shifted through a complex series of colors as she processed the implications. For centuries, my people pursued perfection through absolute control. We saw humanity's chaotic approach to technology as dangerous, primitive. She turned to Sarah, her scales settling into a deep blue of understanding. We were wrong. True perfection lies in the balance between order and chaos. The quantum field began to stabilize, forming intricate patterns that defied conventional physics. The collected ships, once proud symbols of technological superiority, drifted powerless in space. But they weren't destroyed. They were transformed. Look at this, Raj called out excitedly. The quantum field isn't just disrupting their technology. It's restructuring it. The interaction between our containment array and your crystalline matrices has created a new form of quantum architecture. Valthor moved to study the readings, his scientific curiosity overcoming his natural caution. Impossible, yet there it is. The field has found a way to merge biological, mechanical, and quantum systems in perfect harmony. It's as if it took the best aspects of all three species' technologies and evolved them. That's what happens when you embrace uncertainty, Sarah explained. Sometimes the most powerful solutions come from letting go of what you think is possible. The next few hours were a flurry of activity as human and cerulean teams worked together to secure the disabled collective vessels. The enemy crew, their biomechanical systems temporarily dormant, were safely contained. But the real work was just beginning. 1 week later, the combined fleet hung in high orbit around the cerulean homeworld. The crystalline spires of the capital city sparkled below, their perfect geometric patterns now interwoven with new, more organic designs, a visual representation of the changes sweeping through their society. In the Grand Assembly Chamber, Sarah stood before the gathered cerulean leadership, her voice carrying across the vast space. What we achieved against the collective wasn't just a military victory. It was proof that different approaches to evolution, different ways of thinking, can come together to create something greater than the sum of their parts. Zarin, her scales now permanently bearing traces of the deep purple of command mixed with the blue of wisdom, stepped forward. The collective sought to consume our differences. Instead, we learned to celebrate them. Humanity's ability to embrace chaos, combined with our pursuit of precision, has opened doors we never imagined existed. The quantum architecture we discovered, Raj added, gesturing to the holographic displays showing the transformed collective technology. It's just the beginning. By combining human adaptability with cerulean precision, we've created a new path forward, not just for our technologies, but for our civilizations. The assembly erupted in a wave of color as thousands of cerulean scales shifted in response. What had begun as a first contact situation had evolved into something unprecedented, a true synthesis of different evolutionary paths. There will be challenges ahead, Sarah acknowledged, looking out at the assembled faces, both human and cerulean. Other threats may emerge from the darkness between stars, but we face them not as separate species pursuing our own forms of perfection, but as partners in evolution. Valthor, who had once doubted the wisdom of human methods, raised his voice in agreement. From this day forward, the Cerulean Empire and humanity walk a shared path, not because we have become the same, but because we have learned that our differences make us stronger. As the assembly chamber filled with the sounds of approval, Sarah caught Zarin's eye. The High Commander's scales showed a new pattern, one that reflected both the ordered precision of her people and the dynamic adaptability they had learned from humanity. "You know," Sarah said quietly, "the collective was right about one thing. Evolution is inevitable. They just didn't understand that the best evolution comes not from consuming differences, but from embracing them." Zarin's scales rippled with amusement. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson we have learned from Earth's children, that perfection isn't found in the absence of chaos, but in learning to dance with it. Above them, through the chamber's transparent dome, the stars shone with new possibility. Somewhere out there, other civilizations waited to be discovered, other challenges to be faced. But now they would face them together, two species united not by similarity, but by their commitment to growing stronger through difference, an endless evolution of understanding.